Hey guys, I am so excited to tell you that we have now launched several episodes of Starting Over Stronger, and the topics that we've covered have been important ones. And we are looking forward to so many more great conversations with the experts who can help you get through your divorce and recovery afterwards in ways that you would struggle otherwise. That is my whole mission. And as we have just really begun to dug our heels in and gotten this message out, I just wanted to pause for a moment and ask if each of you would take just a few moments and go visit the Starting Over Stronger Facebook page, like and follow it, and leave a review. There you can share how the podcast has helped you, as well as any Starting Over Stronger services. If you are a divorce coaching client, share more about that. Let the people listening to this podcast, as well as those who are considering listening to it or getting involved, know what they can expect and what kind of encouragement and hope they can find here. That really truly makes all the difference. Your 5-star reviews on Facebook are also valuable, as well as this platform. Wherever you're hearing this podcast, they have an ability for you to go in and rate with stars and reviews, and it really truly makes a difference. We won't reach as many people with this hope and help if we don't all go in and share our experiences. And so that is my big ask of you today. If you would take just a few moments, maybe even pause this right now before you listen to this episode and go do that, because I know it's just so easy to forget. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to many, many more great conversations with people who I know can be of such value to you as you deal with your own divorce. So hang in there, know there's hope, know that there's help, and be ready for another great episode here in just a few moments.
Welcome to the Starting Over Stronger show, where you'll find help and hope for your divorce survival and recovery. Divorce well, live well.
Self-care doesn't have to be, you don't have to spend 90 minutes in a massage room. You can absolutely fit it into your life.
Hey guys, welcome back to Starting Over Stronger, Divorce Survival and Recovery. Today's guest is going to really bless you. Her name is Rebekah Bramlett, and she is a holistic health practitioner. I actually met her first when she was practicing massage therapy, but she's also a wellness coach, and that is where she's really focusing right now. And her mission is to help people to improve their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And there has never been a time in our lives that we have needed these kinds of services and assistance more than we do now, especially if we are also facing or recovering from divorce. So today, Rebekah and I are going to help those of you who feel like a runaway train headed straight into burnout, feeling yourself juggling 100 tasks and 1,000 thoughts all at once, noticing yourself snapping. So let's just get tuned in to what we have to say here today. Hello again, and welcome, Rebekah.
Hi Annie, thanks for having me here today.
Glad to have you. Do you want to tell us just a little bit more about what you do as a holistic health practitioner?
Sure. So I started my journey into kind of the wellness world with energy healing. So that really focuses on the spiritual aspect. I then kind of ventured deeper, wanted to learn more about the body, so I started practicing massage therapy, which focuses obviously on the physical aspect. Combining those two has been really a really neat dynamic. And I've of late been focusing on the coaching aspect, which is more the lifestyle, the mindset part of the trilogy, the health trilogy. So that's what I do. I love to see people take responsibility for their well-being and make the transformation that they need to create the life that they want.
Awesome. Well, from what I know of you, Rebekah, you are a very gentle and sweet soul with what I can only think to call a spiritual presence. So it's no surprise to me to hear that you do or at least started out doing, and probably still do some work with energy. What I mean by that is just that my soul and my spirit feel instantly calmer when I'm around you, and I think that is just a rare gift. I've really only known a handful of people in my life with that kind of energy. And honestly, I sometimes wish I had more of it myself. I think my energy is a little bit more intense. Maybe that's why I'm led to be a divorce coach, which is an arena that a lot of people tell me they would not even want to have to deal with. But I think we all have these callings that are just, they're right for us, they're right for our personalities and our experiences. And for you, someone who carries such a calming presence, it's perfect that you are finding your purpose and helping others find their calm and their well-being. So again, thank you for being here. I am looking forward to diving into this, and I don't think I said it before, but today's topic is putting the self back in self-care. So we want to talk about what self-care is, what it isn't, how to stop telling ourselves excuses that keep us stuck, and just embrace it already, right? But before that, I want to start where I do with all of my guests by asking you to tell me and our listeners a little bit about how divorce has affected your life on whatever level feels most fitting to you.
Sure. So I come from I have a few experiences that have really shaped who I am around divorce. My own parents were divorced by the time I was 3, and I think so I was raised by a single mother. My dad was in my life, but not a constant in my life. And I think that really affected who I chose as a partner in adulthood. So having that experience as a little girl, I was looking for that love outside of myself. And as an adult, that carried over. Instead of loving me, I was looking for that in a partner to give me the love that I really needed to find myself. And looking back now, I'm very grateful that I feel like life gives us those lessons until we are ready to learn them.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being so vulnerable with that. It's not an easy topic for anybody, but pretty much everybody listening to this podcast right now can relate with you on that. And so we are all, I'm sure, very appreciative of you being willing to open up and share that. And so let's just get started talking about self-care. Kind of a power-packed word, and it can mean so many things. It feels kind of elusive and I think a little bit extra, as the younger kids call it nowadays. And yet it's like the proverbial airplane advice that reminds us every single time we travel to put on our own mask first if we have any hope of actually helping anyone else. And so this is just too important to brush off, as so many people do, especially when times get tough, like say when you're preparing for, enduring, or recovering from a divorce. And I recently read that the Health Foundation has determined that regular self-care can reduce doctor visits for long-term conditions by up to 80%. I was kind of surprised at that. That's a big number. And they also said that the benefits were long-lasting. So things like fewer headaches, stomach issues, less insomnia, and improved emotional outlook on whatever you're facing. And who doesn't want that? I know I do, and especially those listening to this podcast who are dealing with a divorce situation certainly would love to have all of those things. And so you and I want this for everyone listening as well. And so let's just start by defining what self-care actually is. I imagine a lot of different things come to people's minds when they hear that. And I know that for me, I tend to think of massages and coffee dates with my girlfriends, or spending time alone in nature, like walking or hiking to think or pray. So I just am curious, first of all, what are some things that you think of when you think of self-care? And then secondly, would you just give us your professional opinion on what a true definition is?
So self-care is very fluid, as you've mentioned. It's so different for everyone. It really comes down to looking inside yourself. Where it gets really stressful and overwhelming is where you're looking outside yourself. You know, there's a million people out there who will take your money and tell you what you need to do to be well. Until you look inside yourself and start asking what your needs are, how do you take care of yourself first? You know, you cannot, when you pour from an empty cup, when you put everybody else's needs first, you wear yourself out. You become resentful to the people that you're caring for. It's not sustainable. You have to take care of yourself, and it's really a lifestyle. It doesn't have to be, I have to squeeze in a chiropractor appointment and a massage every week and take away from your time doing the things that you actually love. Those things are obviously great.
Yeah.
But it's really different for everyone, and it's more about asking yourself what you truly need. Maybe it's to have chocolate cake for dinner because you worked your ass off during the day and you deserve it.
I like that answer. That's good.
And maybe that's, waking up an hour earlier to think about the life that you want to create and start making a plan towards creating that life.
Right. Yeah, so what I think I hear you saying is that self-care isn't always the frilly fun stuff. Sometimes it's the hard stuff, like going to the gym or getting up early and journaling, or, taking time away from things you might enjoy more, but realizing that these other things are more important in that moment. So that's good stuff. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I hope everyone had their ears tuned in and maybe even made some notes there. But there are also some misconceptions. So now that we have an idea of what self-care is, let's just spend a second on what it is not.
Okay. So
like some of the misconceptions. What do you think people think of with self-care that is probably not really self-care?
Let's talk about diet
Okay.
versus lifestyle. Okay, so when you're creating this diet type of wellness and self-care, you're restricting yourself, taking things away, and it's just not sustainable for you to restrict everything. Whereas you add something in that you love or you value. Say you love to run, so you're gonna do that. And when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to other things. So if you're saying yes to binge watching a show in your evening, maybe the show you really love, and maybe you need that every once in a while, but if you're saying yes to that, then maybe you're saying no to that 30-minute walk with your family, with your children, or a phone call with a supportive friend who can encourage you to move towards the life that you want to create.
That makes sense. Okay, so I don't know how many other weirdos out there like me are familiar with the Discovery Channel show Mythbusters, but we're going to play our own little version of that here today. I know working with people going through divorce, and I'm sure the same for you, working with people and developing their wellness, I've heard every excuse in the book. It's like you'd think I was telling people they needed to slap themselves across the face really hard every day when I mention the word self-care. The second I mention it, defenses go up, and people... I get this litany of excuses and justifications for why they haven't done it. They can't do it. They won't do it. They don't do it, and they never will. And so I just think they don't really get what it is. And so whatever it is, that it's not for them. They just know it is. And so what I would like to do is just kind of look at a list of things and just see what we can do to undo these myths. These are just some of my favorites, not really favorites, I guess, more or less not my favorites, the ones I don't like hearing. But I would love to hear your response on how to handle these, because I'm sure that there are people listening who have said these things at some point or another, and maybe your insight into this will help them to be able to understand that this is something they can work through and find a solution for. So we'll just go through them one by one. And then at the end, if you want to add anything to it that I didn't think of, then please do. So I think the very first one that always comes up is, I don't have time for self-care.
Okay, so what I hear when I hear that is, I don't make myself a priority.
True. What do you think you could say to that person that would help them understand that they can find time? I guess a better way to say it would be, how do we make ourselves a priority without feeling like we're being, selfish or whatever?
You've got to be a little bit selfish. Like I said, you can't pour from an empty cup,
Yeah.
and you have to make the time. You can let go. You can take a walk on your lunch break if that's what you need. You can put something good inside your body. Self-care doesn't have to be, you don't have to spend 90 minutes in a massage room. You can absolutely fit it into your life. You just have to figure out what the change needs to be and take small baby steps until you've got that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Totally. Okay, so money doesn't grow on trees where I live. I cannot justify spending frivolously on myself.
It doesn't have to be expensive either. You don't have to spend money.
Well, do you have ideas for people of things that they can do that are good self-care that don't cost a dime?
Yeah, going for walks, running. You can work out at home. We talked about spending time with a friend.
So maybe the issue is not so much that they think that self-care is expensive as that maybe they're still thinking about self-care the way that I always have, massages and coffees and things that cost money versus walks in nature and going to pack a picnic and go to the park and sit and talk with a friend and just stuff like that doesn't cost anything. So maybe it's not so much about the money, but just about understanding that there are other ways to care for yourself besides those that cost money.
Absolutely. I think it comes down to your values, where you're placing your value and how much time you're spending immersing yourself in that. So
yeah,
if you really, really, really value time with your children, but you're not spending your energy in that way, then you're probably not going to feel filled up.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't have to cost money. It really comes down to figuring out what your values are and prioritizing them in a way that is true to you.
And you said something there that just reminded me of a philosophy that I learned recently from Jay Shetty, and that is that a lot of times we don't get the satisfaction that we're looking for in activities because we aren't fully involved in them. We're not giving that specific task or activity our full attention. So, you had said if you value spending time with your children, but you leave those situations feeling like it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. One thing to consider is that maybe you were distracted. Were you, trying to watch a show with them? Were you trying to check your phone while you were with them? Was your mind on work when you really were wanting to try to just spend that time playing with your kids or what have you? So one thing that I think is real important as we think about self-care is just realizing the difference between time and energy. We can spend time on something and not be giving it our full energy. Mm-hmm. And it's going to leave us very distracted and frustrated and feeling generally unsatisfied because we're trying to do more than one thing at one time. And so that's one thing I think that would even, probably on any of these things would help, is just to realize that whatever it is that you choose to do, whether it costs money or it doesn't, just give it your all.
Be present.
Be present in the moment and put everything else aside, because nothing that you are putting aside will matter for this moment. And when you come to those things that you've put aside, then you can give them your full attention. And I think it's a great philosophy. I think it would really change a lot of people's attitudes about a lot of things. And one of the other myths that we hear is that self-care is being selfish or indulgent. And, we've talked about it, and I think, in a lot of ways it's kind of common sense that you have to take care of yourself. You shower, you take care of your basic human needs every day. You are the only one that is going to take care of you, so it cannot possibly be selfish for you to do so. And so really, maybe the best thing to do is just stop labeling things as self-care when really it's just a part of being a human and doing what is good for you. And so, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think for sure that especially when you're going through a divorce, a huge life change, a big transition, you have to start with your basic needs.
Yeah. And
that is self-care, and build from there. You're creating a new you, a new life. And it's a cool experience.
It is a very cool experience, but yet it's heavy. Like sometimes to to realize that, maybe you've kind of lost yourself for years, and maybe you don't even know what you like. And I can think of 100 times I've had conversations with friends and people like, where do you want to go eat? I don't know. I don't care. I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, where do I want to go to eat?
Yep.
Let me think just for a second here.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we actually have to put an effort into it of thinking, what is it that sounds good to me to eat right now?
Yes.
And what's wrong with me saying whatever that is? So that's just a simple example, but maybe in your whole life you're going to have to stop and pause and really consider what it is that you think and what it is that you feel and what it is that you want. And another one is that your family isn't supportive. They don't care if I do anything for myself or if it inconveniences them, and that's a real problem. But what would be the best way to get around that, to deal with that?
I would start. It's very important to have people that you can go to. A lot of people that you will expect to be supportive, especially when you're making changes to better yourself, and to do what's more true to you. A lot of people, even the ones that you really expect to be there and show up for you and support you, might not see that for themselves, or out of fear, they may unintentionally shut you down. Not at all intention to harm you or to offend your self-esteem or your confidence, but because they can't see changes like that for themselves. So it's really important to find, even if it's just one person, even if it's not somebody you know in real life, one person that really supports who you're trying to become. I think and if you don't have that right now, then keep it to yourself. Be supportive of yourself, because when it comes down to it, that's all you really have.
So we can get support outside of our family if we can't get it in. And another thing I think would be to kind of try to put yourself in their shoes. And unfortunately, a lot of people have sort of a what's in it for me kind of mentality. So maybe, if you could present the ideas in a way that helps the person to understand that by you doing these things that may be a sacrifice for them for a few minutes each day, could actually end up benefiting them in the long run, because their mom or their partner isn't stressed out all the time.
Yeah, I think that's where boundaries come in. And while initially people do not like it when you set boundaries with them, in the long run, and actually immediately you'll feel a huge difference. When you say, no, my needs are this. Yeah. And you don't make excuses, you just say, my needs are this, and you don't accept anything outside of that. It changes you, and it changes other people's response to you as well.
I would agree with that completely, and I would go one step further, that if you're setting boundaries in a relationship does not yield a person first pushing against it and then accepting it, that's probably a pretty good indication that might not be a good relationship for you to be in. And obviously, we're here talking on a divorce podcast, so a lot of the people that are listening already know this, but if they don't, now is a good time to understand that, especially when it comes to self-care, you are going to have to do some hard things sometimes. And unfortunately, if you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't value your needs, that's a really big red flag. Because even when, we're hurting and we're struggling, if we're with someone that truly loves us and cares about our well-being, they may balk at first and they may struggle with some changes that we're making, but they're going to come around to those things and be able to accept what you need and value it even. So, let that just, I guess, be an indicator if you can't get to that place that more may be needed. And so now on to the next myth, which is that if you are considering massage as a form of self-care, which I've said a couple times already, I certainly do. One thing that I have noticed is that there are some people that have said or implied that they just do not like being touched. And the only thing that I can think of is that there maybe is some kind of trauma in their past that it causes that feeling, because being somebody who loves massage, it's really hard for me to imagine not enjoying that. So you used to do massages at least, and so I was curious what your thoughts were on that.
That's really common. And yes, I do think that some people have experienced trauma and maybe they're afraid of being triggered, or that brings up they just don't like it. I also enjoy massage. I do believe that some people just truly aren't touchy people. They don't like that, and maybe their lifestyle that they have doesn't require massage. While it is really good, it has a lot of physical benefits. You know, running has a lot of similar benefits. Chiropractic is really great too, and one thing works better for other people.
Okay, well, that's fair. You don't have to get a massage if you don't want to. Just send your gift cards to me. Okay, so people say, I don't even know what I like. I wouldn't know what to do to take care of myself.
I'm still learning as well.
That's true. And it changes all the time, right?
Absolutely. Like you had mentioned earlier, even when it comes to making choices, when you're in a state of survival, you can't really make clear decisions. And so when you're going through a big transformation, a huge life change, you're likely in one way or another in a state of survival in some ways. And you really have to come back and to start even yourself as a little girl. What I've noticed coming into adulthood and going through huge life changes is all of the self-healing and all of the work that I've done has really brought me back into who I was before the world and the experiences told me who to be. Good. So yeah, I think that it's a learning curve for all of us. And if you do know like every single thing that you like and your style, then congratulations, that's huge.
You are worlds ahead of the rest of us. And like I said, they change all the time. So it really isn't about knowing everything you like. It's just about finding something right now. What's the next thing?
Absolutely.
Close your eyes. What do you wish would appear in front of you right now?
Absolutely.
I think our basic human nature will take over and provide us with answers.
Yes, and you sometimes have to start by, when you can't make a decision, you just have to move forward and experience something and then decide, oh, I didn't think this was what I thought it was going to be, or this didn't turn out to be what I thought it was going to be. Yeah. And then do the next right thing.
Yeah. You know, and I think another form of I don't have time for self-care is that it's just not worth the time and energy that I would have to expend to get away from my routine that I have in my day, you know, and whatever that entails for whoever is listening, you know, just those are going to be different situations. But, you know, to think that taking care of yourself is just not worth the time and energy, you'd rather just keep doing what you're doing. It reminds me of that saying that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If you've been for years neglecting to take care of yourself and to treat yourself well, to do things for yourself that no one else is going to do, it will take some time and energy to kind of reverse that course, and it will definitely be worth it. But maybe, can you think of anything that might help somebody to take that leap?
Yeah, I think that this is another place where the mind needs to be shifted. You know, you really can't get a positive life by having a negative mind.
Yeah, true.
Gosh, you are so worth it.
Yeah.
And you know, putting the self back in self-care. Self-care isn't worth the time and energy I would have to expend to get the time away. So you're saying you are not worth it, because you taking care of you is the definition of self-care. So you definitely are worth it, is what I would help to shift someone back into their self and take a look at different language to try to get some change there.
That's a good point. Maybe it's what we're saying to ourselves that's inhibiting all of these myths, including the next one, which is that I can't relax when I try to do self-care because I'm just thinking of everything else I should be doing or what's happening at home without me. So, you know, how do we talk to ourselves about that? How do we shift that in our mind?
Well, that one for sure, being present. I find that when I go for a run, if I'm thinking about the end of it, it is so much harder for me to run. I'll walk much more often because I'm thinking about the end. Whenever I do that and I shift my mind into the left foot, putting the left foot down and the right foot down and the left foot down, just the next step, not the end. It really helps me to come back into my body, and I can run 4 times as long. So that's a good way, and that's with anything. Just to be present with what you're doing will take away some of that guilt.
Yeah.
At least let it go until when you're done.
And maybe we just need a few times of doing that to see that the world is not going to tilt off of its axis if we actually take care of ourselves for a while.
Yes. Can I say also, running is one of the things I do for self-care. And whenever I get into a phase where I'm like, I stop running for a week or two, I let the world get so busy, and then the biggest thing with going to the gym and running is, I think, well, I'm not going to have the energy to do that. I'm going to be tired afterward and not have the energy I need to do everything else. Yeah. Which is such a mind trick, because I know that whenever I do run and I do work out, I can be 100% more productive in every other area of my life. It's just taking that first step is the hardest part.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with all of those. So anything else that you've heard, any myths that you think get in people's way when they think about self-care? Or did we cover them all?
I think the time and the money are the 2 biggest excuses. And then I think from what we've gathered here in this conversation, I think that being present with the things that you value is what's going to help you to reduce that guilt that you're going to have about taking care of yourself.
Well, so as I think about all of those different myths and everything else that we've talked about today, one very deep inhibitor to our awareness of the importance of self-care is the dreaded victim mentality. And no one really wants to admit that they struggle with this. Some have absolutely no awareness at all that it is a deeply rooted belief system that feeds every thought and action. But we do need to look at this for just a bit, because it's a big one. There is a book that I often recommend. It's called TED, T-E-D, The Empowerment Dynamic by David Emerald. And it is a really enjoyable and quick read, and it introduces us to a powerful alternative to the Cartman drama triangle. If you don't know what that is, but your life and most of your important relationships always feel chaotic to you, I would highly recommend that you grab this $12 book off Amazon. The DDT, or the dreaded drama triangle, is a relationship dynamic that's illustrated on a triangular diagram with the roles of victim, who is the eternal sufferer, the persecutor, who blames the victim for their suffering, and the rescuer, who tries to step in to take away the victim's suffering. You'll have to read the whole book, or even just search the concept online if you want to try to get a full understanding of it. But basically, it is exactly what happens in every toxic relationship. Both parties take turns moving in and out of these 3 roles. If he is persecuting her, then she's a victim and she's looking for a rescuer. If someone else is persecuting him, she tries to be his rescuer. There are endless combinations, and they are all dysfunctional and hurtful. And Emerald, in this book, offers a simple and engaging story of 3 characters in a life-changing encounter on a beach, which illustrates how persecutors can become challengers and become focused on learning and growth. Rescuers can become coaches who ask questions and provide healthy support instead of enabling. And victims can become creators who are focused on desired outcomes and are willing to take baby steps to get where they want to go. It's one of those books that I could name on maybe both hands the total number of books in my life that I've read that have totally shifted my paradigm. And this was one of them. And it just happens to, in the most complete way I know, help people understand a victim mentality and maybe even be able to finally see it in themselves and what they can do about it. And so what more do you know about this dynamic, and how have you seen it affect people's well-being or their ability to embrace taking good care of themselves?
I think all of those statements that we had just gone through just a minute ago really are good examples of a victim mentality. It's always, this is about shifting and taking responsibility for your well-being. You can you can blame everyone else. You can make excuses until your face turns blue. But until you really take responsibility and start saying, my life is this way. Okay, let me give you an example. It was just a few years ago. The father of my children, I couldn't talk to him. Anytime I would talk to him, I would, for the rest of the day, just feel so drained, because although I wasn't saying the things out loud, I was angry because he wasn't taking responsibility for his part. And so I had to do some really deep work looking inside myself and realizing that it wasn't that he was putting me in this position, which, yes, sucks, and I can be, angry about that for the rest of my life, or I can take responsibility. I can enjoy the time with my kids because I make that my intention to do so, instead of feeling bad because somebody else isn't doing their part. So that's wasting my time, the more energy I put into that. And it's just continuing to give your energy to the person that you're giving the credit to for stealing your joy.
Well, I think that we've covered it pretty well today. We've defined self-care. We've debunked all the myths and excuses and hit head on one of the biggest predictors of exasperation and poor self-care, which is the victim mentality. So I guess just in closing, if you can think of just some super simple, basic steps for that person who never really thought about self-care or, has been closed off to the idea, but maybe they've kind of sensed today that there's maybe something more they could or should be doing to kind of help themselves, and they don't know where to get started.
A very basic, free practice that takes very little time. I would recommend first closing your eyes and visualizing the most ideal life for you. Think about, in 3 months, what do you want your life to look like? Do you want to lose 15 pounds? Do you want to have a healthier diet? Do you want to spend more time with your kids? You have to start there and see where you are, where you have to have an idea of where you're going before you can start taking baby steps and taking actions to creating that for yourself. So I would definitely recommend visualizing in 3 months, visualizing in 5 years what life you would like to have created. What I visualize whenever I don't have an idea of where I'm headed is I feel like I'm in an ocean and the waves are sweeping you back and forth and you have no direction. You're just getting pushed back and forth. Where when you know where you're going, you have a lifeboat. You can see it in the distance. The waves are still pushing you back and forth. The waves are life and they're still pushing you back and forth, but you have a direction to swim in and you're moving somewhere. You're not completely lost. So I would definitely start there. Your second step would be to find that supportive person, a friend. If you need to hire like a coach, I would recommend it. Social media, it doesn't have to be somebody that you could have in person, just somebody that is supportive. It could even be somebody that you're following. So you're following Annie and she puts out really supportive stuff on, motivating you to be better. So that would be really your second step, is creating a supportive tribe. The next one, really listen to your needs. You have to look inside yourself and create a dialogue. It's going to feel really weird. It might feel really weird for you at first to look inside and, what do I need right now? What is best for me? And how can I feed myself mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally? And it's a learning process. It really is. This is going to be new for a lot of you. And it was new to me once, and I still learn every single day. I'm not a master.
Yeah. Well, that's the definition of a true master, is somebody who has a lot of expertise but also knows they still have a lot to learn.
Yeah. Yes.
We are all still teachers and students all at the same time for the rest of our lives if we're smart. So thank you. That is some good stuff. So I just want to thank you again, Rebekah, for joining me today to talk about this. Listeners, I hope this has been what you needed to hear today to help you feel encouraged on your journey. And just to summarize, I think really what we've said today is that the first thing you have to do is gain an awareness about yourself and about your situation. and then commit to being present in each of the moments that you create for yourself after you discover, look inside and find what it is that you need. Be present for it and shift your mentality if that's what's needed, because everyone can take good care of themselves. So don't let yourself get hung up thinking that's not a possibility for you anymore. So thank you again for tuning in with us each week to talk about what matters for you in and after divorce. Remember, you don't have to be an expert on any of this stuff. Here on the Starting Over Stronger show, the takeaway for every episode is that we are like massive ships on open waters, and we can make even a 1-degree turn in the steering wheel of our lives, our divorces, our families, and ourselves. And as a direct result of that very slight correction, we can end up in a totally different destination. There are people and resources available to you to be your life preservers during this storm, so do please reach out. And as you think about ways to apply what we talked about today, you may want to check out the resources in today's episode description to connect with Rebekah or myself for more information about wellness, divorce coaching, or real estate during divorce. Please find Starting Over Stronger on Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite podcast channel to share with anyone you know going through divorce. And while you're there, your 5-star ratings and reviews make a very big difference to us. Thank you for tuning in. We are here for help during your divorce and for hope as you are starting over stronger. See you next time.